Hi, welcome to our second DCR protocol, cycle 6. Today we will learn about how to break a fast. As an important message, remember to not do anything without your physician's advice. To start, why do we need to break a fast properly? This is because fasting is actually not that dangerous. The danger of fasting are usually experienced not during the fasting period, but during the refeeding period. That is why it is very important that before you try doing some extended fasting, that is fasting more than 24 hours, you need to know details not just about fasting itself, but also the protocols for breaking a fast. So as an overview, there's two important side effects that you don't want to have after your extended fasting. That is the refeeding syndrome and dumping syndrome. So dumping syndrome usually occurs when you eat very fast and foods that are very heavy, something that your stomach and your gastrointestinal system can still digest. The person usually ends up rushing to the bathroom, flushing everything out, dumping everything, thus the name dumping syndrome. And another one, the more dangerous one, is actually refeeding syndrome. Refeeding syndrome is the sudden influx or entry of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and other electrolytes going inside your intracellular system, which results to a sudden drop of electrolytes and important blood components, which can lead into coma, even sudden death. So that is why it is very, very important to not do it the wrong way. And to counter those two side effects, you must need to remember two important rules in breaking a fast as well. Of course, there are so many others, but for the purposes of time, we will focus on these two important things. The first one would be never to break your fast with solid, heavy, and hard to digest foods. If you do that without proper preparation, you'll end up having indigestion and you could be rushing to the toilet to flush it all out. And it's going to be a very unpleasant experience. The next rule would be to never break your fast with something that can spike your insulin. And what are the foods that can spike insulin? It's usually very high in carbohydrates. So the desserts, sodas, even certain fruits that are very high in glucose, those that are very sweet, those can induce some degree of refeeding syndrome. Even those foods that are very, very high in salt can also lead to some degree of refeeding syndrome, especially after a long fast that is more than 24 hours without intake of any balanced electrolytes. That's why with our DCR protocol, it is actually somewhat a step-by-step breaking a fast protocol wherein after a solid 1 day of dry fasting, we move to another day of clean fasting where fluids, electrolytes are allowed. And by the time we finally break our 2 days fast, we open it up with something light but already calorie containing, which would include bone broth. So bone broth or vegetable broth, but best to have bone broth so that it will have more nourishment. It can have some good fats and good proteins to prepare your digestion. Doing bone broth after breaking your fast will not just avoid dumping syndrome, but it will also lessen the risk of having refeeding syndrome. There are other foods that you can take in after the bone broth, say for example, after 30 minutes or 20 minutes or so, and that could be another lighter meal, which would be blanched vegetables or a light protein like egg, white meat from fish or from chicken, and a good source of probiotics too, especially if you are fond of eating plant-based sources. So probiotics can come from kimchi, from sauerkraut, from kombucha, and also plain Greek yogurt. So those are the things that you can consume before proceeding to your proper meal. Avoid, as much as you are excited, avoid eating a full heavy meal after a long fast. It might be different from person to person, and some might be able to accommodate heavier meals as compared to others, but to be safe, it is always better to start slow to prepare your body, to prepare your gut for the food to come in again. The benefit of fasting is so good, but it can be jeopardized when you don't refeed properly. So always remember to do it right the first time. Don't ever follow this if you are not knowledgeable about it. And if you wish to know more, we have a masterclass for that. But for now, Those are the important things that you need to know how to break a fast. Never to do it with something very heavy, and never to do it with something that can lead into refeeding syndrome, such as carbohydrates, bread, pasta, dessert, chocolate bar, a candy, or a very, very salty bone broth. Try to make your bone broth a full bone broth without anything in it, or just a very mild salt to taste. But as much as possible, avoid overdoing it, especially because we don't want risking ourselves into having refeeding syndrome from the rush of insulin from those carbohydrates, or from the sudden rise of sodium in our system coming from the food that we eat. So electrolytes are important, food is important, but you have to know the right balance and the right amount in order for us to always stay safe. Right now, we are already around 47th hour of our fasting. And as usual, we will get our glucose and ketone index just so to check that we are not overdoing our nutritional ketosis and we are still on the safe side. If you haven't watched our previous video about GKI ketosis and how to interpret glucose and ketone index, you can just use the hashtag DCR healing protocol for you to watch the previous videos about it. So let's check. So always replace the needle with a new one. And then lock. And then check for the depth. So usually one is enough for us. And have your alcohol ready and your wipes ready to sanitize everything. You can also massage your finger so that the blood will flow easily. And then prepare the device as well as the strip. The brown one is the glucose. Wait until it beeps to mark that it's now ready. And then prick, pull, and then push. Blood, wipe the first one, and then check. $61. And to note, I did a 45 minutes of stationary bike this morning before I came in here. So somewhat that affected in a way that it could have a gluconeogenesis effect. So it's making more glucose.
Wow.
With 5.2. 0.6. I think it's just a 0.6. 0.6. So it's high degree of nutritional ketosis. And now, Bobby. 1.9. GKI is still good. It's very, very well weight for our other brother Andrew. And we will see you next time in our last cycle of DCR protocol. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.